but how do you explain to someone that aligning your actions with your values has a benefit to you? You know, like it's something you have to just experience, right? It's something you have to feel, kind of, and
It is.
yeah, and so it's very difficult to, I think, use that as a carrot because it's this amorphous thing until you feel it, and so this is kind of a good segue, I guess, because my goal has never been to be online. Okay, online is a great tool. It's a great organizing tool, and I really like it and use it, and networking tool, and I use it for that purpose. But
Yeah.
ultimately, the work that we're talking about, in order to allow people to make the decision that you're talking about, to be brave and to fight against white supremacy, people are so unprepared to even make the choice at this moment in time. And there's various
True.
reasons for that. There's widespread ignorance on the subject of race.
Yes.
So they can't make you can't make a proper decision based on ignorance, right? And so that is one of the things we have to change. And a lot of people's hearts are closed to the idea because of a combination of fear and again ignorance. And so
Fear and ignorance.
yeah, so
Yes.
I mean, I think the only way to unravel that, I don't think the internet is a very good vehicle to try to unravel fear and ignorance because
It
fear
is
and
not.
ignorance abounds on the internet. And so my goal has always been from the start, and it continues to be, and I've already made some direct steps in this regard, is to create live events where I allow people to engage with me in this conversation in front of an audience to dispel people's fear in person, live in person, make you feel uncomfortable, but make you question that uncomfortable feeling that you're feeling because you actually realize that there's nothing to fear in that moment, but you're still feeling it. Wrestle with that,
Mm.
letting people speak and say the statements that they've been holding back, that they've only thought in their own mind but never actually said to anyone else, allowing them to have that feedback, allowing them to ask the questions that they've had on their mind and in their hearts but they've been scared to ask them,
Yes.
and then showing people that it's okay, that these
Yes.
conversations are okay to have. To me, that's just like step one, because so many people, and I just told this story on the show recently, like as I have a conversation with the racialized white young man who I like grew up with him, since he was a child I knew him. And I literally asked him the following question: what do you think about black people?
Ah.
And literally that question made him have a look of fear on his face, like I was about to reach over and literally strangle him to death. Like he looked like his life was in danger after I
Yeah.
asked him that question. And like it's just it's really nonsensical to me. Like I understand it like logically, I guess, but like seeing it every time, I'm just like, what could have possibly instilled in you this level of fear of that question? And
Yep.
it's moments like those where you can really see the power of
Yep.
this generational racial hierarchy. It manifests suddenly in such a powerful and strong way on an individual level within someone's psyche. And that is something that I think a lot of people have not experienced, but I've experienced it quite a large number of times as someone who has purposefully engaged in these conversations and this education over time, over decades. So one of the other reasons for a live event is to put that on display live and in
Mm.
person. It's a simple matter for me at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the impact of seeing that, of seeing kind of like a window into a universe that you otherwise would never be able to access. I think that's all that's necessary, because it's all that's necessary for any realm of new thought. And as an instructor who's taught a lot of mathematics, who's taught a lot of English, who's dealt with the raw, you know, formulas of thought, this is the cutoff point in the race context. Is they have cut off the ability for people to even have exposure to universes of thought that impact reality. And so
Yes.
that's what we got to do, I think. So what's your reflections on my idea there?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And I happen to be in a field where I've said before, and that field is in, mental health and those sorts of things. We teach people the skills that I believe can help facilitate the conversations that you're talking about, doing the very things that you're talking about. And that is helping individuals to dialogue about a topic that in this country we've been socialized to fear. Especially our white brothers and sisters have really been socialized to fear such topics. Hence, your example of the individual who froze and had the intense fear after being asked, "What do you think about Black people?" I'm sure some of the initial thoughts that when one hears a question that pops into their mind or their head probably came to mind, and he had to filter in a way that he wasn't accustomed to filtering, given the person who asked him that question. So I'm sure he was in fear because he didn't want to say the wrong thing. Or let me rephrase that. He didn't want to say the thing that he actually thought because he knew it would be offensive. Wasn't necessarily wrong. It was only wrong in the context that he knew it was probably contrary to what is quote unquote socially acceptable today.
Yeah. I mean, I would go even deeper with it because I'm sitting right in front of him. So he is having to deal with the cognitive dissonance of the thoughts that came into his head when I asked that. And me, the person he knows, the person who's known him since he was a child.
Wow.
Yeah, like he was stuck. Like he was like, he did feel cornered because he was like, oh gosh, this flood of thoughts. This guy that I know, he's Black. He's asking me about Black people. I've never been asked by a Black person what they think about Black people. All the thoughts that are coming into my head may be racist. Like, what do I do?
Right.
I gave him a pass. I was like, after I saw his fear, I'm not really, I want people to make that first step. I'm not ever going to drag someone. I will bring you as close as I possibly can, and then you decide what you want to do. I am not in the, like, people always talk to me on social media. They're like, oh, like, well, if you're trying to change my mind, I'm like, I'm not trying to change your mind.
I'm not trying to change your mind.
If you want to change your mind, it's your mind. It's
exactly.
not mine. So you change your mind if you want, but like, I am just giving you the information. You can do whatever you want. You can dismiss it, you can forget it, you can take it in, you can reflect on it, whatever you want. But in terms of your decisions for yourself and your thinking and your mind, I have no control over that, obviously. Right. And so
I've used that very line as well, in that I am not trying to change anyone's mind. One of the things that I will do is I will speak my truth, and then I will share facts. And if you want to struggle with my truth, that's fine, because my truth is predicated upon my experiences. But where I really have issues, and I'll get a little bit snarky, is when I put forth the facts. And individuals will then rationalize their way to the answer that they want, as opposed to addressing the facts. But again, that's predicated upon fear, a lot of fear in this country. Some of it is rooted in white supremacist beliefs, and others of it is rooted in, wanting to be socially accepted. But it is still at its root fear that I believe inhibits real and honest conversations. I've been in some circles where we've had these real and honest conversations, and they were uncomfortable. But afterwards, the people who were involved were like, I am so glad I had that opportunity. And one of the reasons why is because they were able to bring themselves more in alignment with being congruent on what they believe and say and what they do, by being able to engage or have a space where they can engage in an honest manner and be able to work to get through their fears. And that's one of the things that in my work that I do, is in working with people on preparing them to work with those who are culturally dissimilar, is to help them understand that as you are training to get to that point, if what I am having you to engage in does not make you uncomfortable, then I failed at my job. You're supposed to feel uncomfortable having conversations that we have been socialized to not have in this country. But keep in mind, it is the uncomfortableness that allows people to grow and to change should they decide to. And so we've got to get people to a point where they are courageous enough, willing enough, informed enough to engage in conversations that will make them uncomfortable, knowing that that uncomfortableness is how they might be able to move forward on whatever topic it is that they're discussing at that time. So